Welcome back, guys. So you've made it to module 5. So what we're going to cover here is why you should exercise as part of weight loss, and then we'll get into when you should exercise. You might think when I say why you should exercise, well, it's a no-brainer, but yet that's not true. I mean, let's look at some statistics on this. So you would assume, well, most people probably exercise when they lose weight. No, only 5% of the population actually achieve the public health guidelines. So what's recommended for the general population as far as exercise is 30 minutes a day, most days of the week, at least 5 days. Only 5% of people do that. Well, consider that 30 to 50% of people are attempting to lose weight at any given time. That means that the majority of people who are attempting to lose weight are not doing it through exercise. They're probably just trying to starve themselves. And so, no, the average person trying to lose weight is not exercising. There is a notion out there amongst some that exercise is not that good to help you lose weight. And that's totally garbage. And I want to kind of talk about why exercising as part of your weight loss program is so important. But first, let's go to this concept that is often debated. Can you out exercise a bad diet? I always have this discussion with my students. Things typically are not as black and white as we make them seem. Let's talk about what we mean by this. Can you out exercise a bad diet? Well, what do you mean? Well, 3,500 calories is roughly the amount of energy in a pound. So let's assume that we go to the gym and we exercise for 30 minutes. Let's assume that we exercise really hard. If we do that, we can expect to have burned about 300 calories. So then we go home and we feel really good about ourselves. And the literature suggests that females and the elderly tend to do this more often. We feel good about ourselves, so we reward ourselves. So we go home and we say, man, my significant other just got a dozen donuts from, I don't know, Krispy Kreme or whatever, fill in your donut place. I'm going to have a sugar raised donut. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad, and that's 230 calories. Or if you're like me, I'd rather get a glazed jelly stick, which is 530 calories. I have just now ingested more calories, depending on which donut I selected, than I burned in that 30-minute grueling workout. It took me 2 seconds to wolf that donut down. So if we're meaning just a numbers game, no, we can't. But it's not just a numbers game. It helps in that. And so no, we can't go exercise and think we can eat whatever we want. So that's not true. But let's look at why it's more than just a numbers game. So we made this clear. So remember, glycogen is your stored carbohydrates. That we store carbohydrates in muscle. Our muscle, remember I said, we can think of as like a gas tank for our glycogen. Well, the size of our gas tanks are not the same, just like the size of gas tanks on vehicles are not the same. So when my wife and I first got married, I wanted to go to the gym and show her how awesome I was, right? I got to show off my manly prowess. And so we went to the gym, and she's not a gym goer, and I've been a gym rat ever since I was probably 14. And so we go to this dingy Gold's gym, and I give her a workout to do, and she's doing it, and she gets done before I get done. I'm like, oh, just go on the stair stepper. And so I'm doing my workout. And I turn around, and I look at her, and she is pale, and she vomits all over the floor of Gold's Gym. She left, and she's never been back. And that's the last time we really have worked out together. So I bring up this story because so her gas tank or her muscle glycogen tank is much lower than mine because she doesn't enjoy exercising like I do. If you exercise more, you have a bigger capacity to store carbohydrates. So now let's say we go on a date. Let's say we go to Olive Garden. And of course, if you go to Olive Garden, you got to eat 10 breadsticks because they're amazing, right? So don't judge me because they're so good. 10 might be excessive. Let's say we have 5. So my wife and I go out to Olive Garden together. She's got a Ford Focus sized gas tank because of what I had just explained. And hopefully mine's more of a big SUV gas tank. We sit down and we both have a breadstick. One breadstick, no big deal. It goes into our gas tanks. We have 2 breadsticks, goes into our gas tanks. Now we work on breadstick number 3. Her gas tank is full of glycogen or carb. So now that breadstick is excess. That excess carbohydrate starts this process of a negative hormonal response to deal with this extra glycogen. Some of that does include fat storage. Mine, I can continue to store more breadsticks because my gas tank's bigger. So I can eat breadstick number 3, breadstick number 4. I'm not saying you should have 5 breadsticks. Of course not. I'm just saying that it affects the way I metabolize them because my gas tank's bigger. And so one of the reasons that exercising is so important for when you're on a diet is it allows you some flexibility in food choice. If you never exercise and you're sedentary, that gas tank is always full. That carbohydrate tank is always full. And so you're always on the verge of causing issues with the food that you put in your mouth. Versus if you're exercising all the time, then you're always depleting the glycogen tank and it allows you some flexibility of what you put in your mouth. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, I've said this so many times in this course, nobody wants to lose 20 pounds of carb. We want to lose 20 pounds of fat. So we have to make sure that we can adequately burn fat. I often will ask my students in class, I'll say, okay, you're sitting there, you're nodding off at my lecture. What are you using for energy right now, sitting there doing nothing? And the answer could either be I'm using carbohydrates for energy or I'm using fats. Often they'll say, oh, you're using carbs. And we typically will say that because we say carbs is our preferred source of energy. That answer is not correct, though. At rest, the biggest thing that determines what you're using for energy is how hard you're working. If we're not working hard, so we're sitting here watching this presentation, unless we're eating, we should be burning fats. That's normal. We actually know that the ability to burn fat at rest, it predicts weight loss success. The inability to do that, so if you cannot burn fat at rest, that predicts weight gain. Well, the ability to do that, or to increase the ability to burn fat at rest, we need to exercise. That's one of the benefits of exercise. So reason number 2 that we need to exercise is it increases your ability to burn fat at rest and during exercise. So meaning as someone who's exercising is burning more fat sitting there doing nothing than the sedentary person. And during the exercise session, they're burning more fat than the sedentary person. So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3, let's go back, and I've drawn this figure for you before, and we'll draw it again. This pie chart represents total daily, and we'll put total daily energy expenditure. Sorry, that E is getting hidden in the red. The biggest, so that the amount of calories you're burning in a day, the biggest thing that makes this up is your resting metabolic rate. And we've talked about the other ones, and then we have physical activity, and we have the thermic effect of food. But resting metabolic rate makes up at least 60%. Depending on who you are, it may make up more. So meaning out of all the calories you're burning throughout the day, resting metabolic rate is the most important. Okay, well, what determines if somebody has a high resting metabolic rate or a low one? Well, the biggest factor is really muscle mass. That's the number one factor. There's a lot of things that affect it, but the number one factor that predicts this is muscle mass. So now think about this. The number one thing that dictates if you have a high metabolism or not is your muscle mass. And now let's say you go on a diet, and some data shows that 35% of all the weight that you lose is muscle mass. Now your metabolism goes down and it goes down, and then weight loss becomes harder. Well, when we look at the data where people are doing resistance training while they're losing weight, they don't lose any muscle mass. So number 3 reason as to why exercise is a must during weight loss is to maintain muscle mass so that resting metabolic rate doesn't go down. So we don't want resting metabolic rate to go down. It's going to make you stop losing weight. But in addition, most people lose weight because they want to look good. They want to feel good. The worst thing that somebody can do, and this happens with weight cyclers, is to create, because they're losing weight and gaining weight. Remember, you lose weight. If you do it wrong, you're losing some muscle mass. You put your weight on back, you're not putting back muscle mass, and you do that repeatedly, it leads to what we call the dreaded skinny fat. This is not a scientific term. The scientific term is sarcopenic obesity. Sarcopenia means muscle loss, and we know what obesity means. But in the dieting world, it is the skinny fat. This is the person that if this guy had a shirt on, we'd all say, oh, he's lean, he looks in shape. But you take his shirt off and the guy's got blubber for love handles. From a health standpoint, this isn't good. We know that low muscle mass predicts disease onset, and so does obesity. But just from how you feel about yourself, this is obviously not what you want. Resistance exercise has been shown to at least maintain, and if done correctly, increase muscle mass while losing fat. If you ask anybody, specifically guys, they'll say, I'll say, well, what's your goal? It's all the same. I want to lose weight and get ripped or increase muscle mass. It's hard to do, but if you do it correctly, you can do that. You must engage in exercise while you're losing weight to do that. So that was I don't know if we were on reason 4 or 5, but that's another reason. So to maintain muscle mass. Well, what about exercise and then your gut health? We've discussed the role of our gut. It's home to millions of microbial bacteria, and they influence weight loss. We've discussed this. Because this bacteria, it extracts energy and helps you store fat and things like that. Well, we know that obese mice and humans have more fat promoting bacteria. There was seminal work, I feel like I've said this prior a little bit, that showed that transplanting fecal matter from obese mice and non-obese mice caused the obese mice to rapidly gain weight. That should have said the non-obese. So meaning if you take non-obese mice and you take their fecal matter and put it in obese mice, they lose weight. I should have said lose weight, sorry. Well, I don't think we're doing fecal matter transplants. If we did that, most scientists in this area do believe it would lead to weight loss. But fecal matter transplants is disgusting. And so because we don't want to do that, we look at alternative solutions. Well, exercise has been theorized as an alternative solution. There's good data where women who exercise at least 3 hours a week have an increased number of bacteria that promotes leanness. Other researchers showed that people with high levels of fitness have gut bacteria that promote leanness. And so right now, the evidence suggests that exercise and being more active can promote this favorable gut environment. And so fifth reason is this: you're increasing the health of your gut environment. And remember the synergy concept that all these should work together to promote weight loss. What are other reasons that exercise is a must? This isn't, everything I've talked about right now isn't diet, guys. All these studies that are showing these effects, it's just exercise. Adding diet helps, right? But I'm trying to make a point that you must exercise in this weight loss journey. Let's look at the health of our fat. We usually don't think about this, but is our fat healthy? Well, we have 3 types of fat. We have white fat, we have brown fat, and then we have this intermediate, which we call beige fat. This is important because white fat is really the fat that we don't like, right? We're storing our fat in there. We don't like the way that it looks. Brown fat, though, is very metabolically active. The whole purpose of brown fat is to generate heat. Well, what is a calorie? A calorie is a unit of heat. So the more brown fat that you have, the more energy expenditure you're producing. It's very metabolically active. Now, beige fat is in between. It behaves much like brown adipose tissue. But I'm going to kind of ignore beige right now just to make a point. But when I say brown fat, it's essentially saying beige as well. So it used to have been thought that brown adipose tissue is only found in babies, because it's found in abundance in babies. Babies have a very small surface area. So to make sure that they generate enough heat, God gave them more brown adipose tissue. But then the theory was that as that baby became a child and then a young adult and adult, that brown adipose tissue went away. Well, researchers have found the presence of brown adipose tissue in adult humans. And now we're starting to realize that we do have some. Now we have much more white, but we do have some brown adipose tissue in the neck and upper clavicle region of adult humans. So we have these 2 types of adipose tissue. Can exercise enhance the health of white adipose tissue? And can it enhance the health of brown that promotes weight loss? Exercise has been shown to increase the health of white adipose tissue. Researchers took white fat from exercise-trained rats and put it into rats who were forced to be sedentary. The sedentary rats who received the exercise fat improved health, and they didn't even do anything. Meaning, because the fat was trained, we took the trained fat, put it in these lazy rats, and the rats got healthy. Now, we don't do fat transplants in humans, and so that's why we're showing rat research. But the research is pretty compelling that we can train this fat. One of the reasons that this happens is, remember, a fat is an endocrine organ, so it releases certain hormones. Exercise favorably enhances the ability to release these hormones that are good for us. The main one's called adiponectin. Um, but we know that exercise can do that, and so yeah, exercise enhances the health of our white adipose tissue. Well, from a weight loss standpoint, the big question is, can an exercise intervention cause us to develop more brown or beige fat? That's really what we want to know. And that's really what scientists have been working on a lot recently. We think that there's this possibility. And the reason is because we have some evidence that it's taken place in burn patients, for example. In these burn victims, metabolism is so high because of infection that's setting in that we see a browning of their white adipose tissue. And I don't mean like it's charred from the burn. I mean, it's becoming brown fat. That obviously is worthless to us because we're not going to burn ourselves. But the reason it's important is because it lends the possibility that we can do it. And so if we take mice, if we give them a low calorie diet and exercise them, there's a lot of studies that show that mice increase the amount of brown and beige fat. Habitual physical activity in cancer patients has shown that this happens. And so this is still an area of ongoing research, but there's enough evidence to suggest that now exercising can give us more of this good fat. And so that's another reason. So the sixth reason exercise is needed for weight loss is it improves the health of your body fat. We need healthy body fat, so it's releasing hormones that cause us to lose fat. The sixth reason is appetite. Exercise induces this anorexic feeling, and I don't mean anorexia in a negative standpoint where it's going to become unhealthy. But what I mean is appetite is reduced. In 1994, there was a landmark paper, and it showed after a single exercise session, subjects experienced decreased appetite. They didn't really need to eat. And this has been shown to be dependent upon intensity. So the higher the intensity of the exercise, the more you're curbing your appetite. When we get into the time of day for exercise, you'll see how crucial this is, because you really should be exercising in the morning. And remember, I said you're skipping breakfast in the morning for a lot of reasons. So you're not eating again till lunch. Well, the reason that this isn't an issue is because you have this anorexic feeling. You're not that hungry. And so this works very well. Last reason, weight maintenance. People who have kept the weight off for long periods of time, every single one of them exercises pretty intensely for a long period of time, every single one. I have never met somebody who has lost, a big amount of weight that doesn't exercise. They all do. The National Weight Control Registry is compiled of people who have successfully lost weight and kept it off at least a year. And this is kind of nice because then we can go into this registry and we can say, well, what are the behaviors of these people who have been able to do it? When looking at these successful losers, every single one of them engages in regular exercise. Those who kept weight off over the long run exercise about 1 hour a day, every day. Some of you guys might be saying, oh, I don't want to do that. No, that's what you're going to need to do. I'm telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. There's not a secret thing out there. That's about what we know, 60 minutes a day. Now, I don't say every day. I always tell my clients and people I consult with to take Sunday off. One, it's the Lord's day. And then two, we need to be able to recover. But 1 hour a day, 6 days a week. It's also been shown that there's a dose response. The more exercise that people engage in, the more amount of weight that can be kept off. So what's the take home message? If you exercise while you're trying to lose weight, it allows you some flexibility in food choice. It allows you to increase the ability to burn fat at rest and during exercise. It, I already said this, increases the number of calories that you are burning because you are adding, you're creating a greater energy deficit. It allows you to increase muscle mass while simultaneously losing fat, which is everyone's goal. It can increase the number of good gut bacteria. It can improve the health of your body fat tissue. It can help you curb hunger, and you'll be able to lose more weight and keep more weight off. And so if you're thinking that you're going to do this program without exercise, you're fooling yourself. This is integral to weight loss success. All right, I'm going to stop this video. This is part one, and then jump into part two.